champ is here. Switch gears, we keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat, and tears, and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. And today, we break through. 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 I know it's lonely at the top, but that's not by speculation. But the position that I got, I climb too high to fall, work too hard to drop. Stop clocks on the speed bag. Every out under pressure, no jet lag. This is greater than trophies and saluted flags. Titles are pain, the cost is paid. Yay, I carried the cross I made. Dealt with the dealer. Baby, the hand was played. New level, next stage. Learn to lead it to legend. Now tell me what's my next stage. Yay. I said the champ is here. Switch gears. We keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat, and tears, and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. And today, we break through. 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 And today, we break through.
You love technology and you love to see it work. Look at that. 2 minutes up. We're going. We already got 20 people already pouring in.
All right.
29. I got to get the multi-stream going. What's going on, everybody? All right. Editors at Blazers Edge are getting ready to post it up on the site. I'm going to post it up on Twitter right now as everybody else starts to pile in.
I just tweeted it.
Oh, perfect.
There we go.
All right. There we go. There we go. There we go. Make sure everything is set up and running. All right. I think we're actually good.
Are we good?
I think we're good. Look at that.
Hey.
See David Myers running in here right away with the one eye emoji for Sean Hyken.
Oh, that's my brand. Shout out to the family. First Blazers.
Let me snooze the Slack notifications right now because otherwise we are going to hear them the entire day. As you can imagine, it's busy. God, can never remember where to silence notifications. Dame seemed to indicate he expected more roster moves. Did you hear that too? Or did I mishear him? I think you guys misheard him because we're not getting anything else right now.
I thought we were getting KD. I thought that's what Dame said.
I was like, is that tampering? That was the first thing that I thought. I was like,
well, no, it's not tampering when it's players. I think that's like the precedent that the league has. Players can talk about other players. It's just coaches and GMs can't.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ocasio says, only 15 minutes late, but who's counting? Blame Sprague. That's all I'm going to say ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You hate to see it.
I do hate to see it. Sean, can I ask you real quick?
Yeah.
On the tampering thing, wouldn't it be odd to not include players in that? Isn't that how all this is going down anyway? It's
because otherwise players just can't talk about each other in the media at all,
Yeah, that's okay. I guess that's a good point.
It's all very dumb. I don't know why.
Dumb.
I don't know why
we can
we're
talk about it on the show if you guys want. Among other things.
We'll talk about that. But we'll get everybody else. We're about 5 minutes in right now. It usually takes about 10 minutes for everybody else to get here. So, real quick, Sean, since you were in the building, right?
I was.
Okay. What was it like being back in the building?
It's fine.
It
was just a pretty normal press conference. It's just everybody had masks on.
Are you going to be able to go? Have they talked to you guys at all about locker room procedure, any of that kind of stuff, or is that up in the air right now?
I've been told that locker rooms won't be open, but there's going to be in-person press conferences, and they're going to supposedly team PR staffs are supposed to be willing to work with us to get one-on-ones with players if we ask for them and like do it ahead of time. So
do it ahead of time.
It's going to be a hell of a lot better than last year, but still not back to pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're a big hoops guy. Did you have at one point, did you ever feel kind of odd going, but you could only do Zoom? So like you're there and you get to see in game, but you don't get to like interact the way you normally do. Did that feel odd for you?
It was terrible. And I actually, for a lot of the season, I didn't even because at the very
you only went to a couple.
Well, at the beginning of the season, I went to the first couple just to see what it was like. And then maybe the first week of January, for whatever reason, the Star Tribune sent their beat writer on the road, Minneapolis, for that game against the Timberwolves, the first week of January. And we were hanging out in the media room beforehand, an hour before the game started. We had our masks on. We were the proper amount of distance apart. And he got a call from a contact tracer saying that somebody that he had been around in LA had been exposed. And then the next, so then he and I both just bounced from the arena.
You're like, nah, but we're good.
And then his test came back negative the next day. And then a couple days later, I started feeling sick. And so I got tested, and luckily my test came back negative, so I was fine. But after that, I stopped going to games until I'd gotten vaccinated once. And then once I got the shot, I started going again. But it was I would just kind of, because normally, if we had normal access, I am planning on going to every game this year because we are going to get actual access.
Yeah.
But normally I would go to every game, even if it was a game I wasn't that interested in, because there's always somebody you can talk to in the in the locker room or in the back hallway or whatever. There's always someone with the visiting team that you can connect with. But now this last season, basically I would go when it was Giannis or Luka or LeBron or a team that I really wanted to see in person. I would go, and then I'd skip the Magic and the Cavs or whoever.
Yeah.
Don't tell Larry that.
Larry, you guys should get Larry on the pod.
He seems awesome.
Working on doing that.
Yeah.
He is going to become the fan favorite.
He already is. I mean, he went out there and crushed it.
Already tell.
Yeah.
He's a soccer fan. I mean, that right there, you're in the good graces. We were just talking, Sean, on our last pod about Portland legends, and I feel like he's already elevated into that status.
Without question.
Yeah, no, he gets it. You can tell in the press conference.
Yeah.
I've talked to a ton of people that covered him and worked with him in Cleveland, and they all said the same thing, that he's going to tell you what he thinks, how he thinks, and what he feels, and he's not really going to put a filter on it, but he's also just a really likable and lovable dude. And
cool.
So you get
works for me.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing right out of the gate. The Blazers have not. Dame is at least for me, media personality 1A. Right, everything is just perfect. He has made 2 genuine missteps in his entire career with his public persona.
I think Melo was pretty close to that level too.
Yeah, up until, like I said, again, very, very, very few. I think you can put LeBron on that same level. There's superstars that they're in that public eye so much, you would expect them to actually step in it a lot more. But they don't. The
two guys that are the absolute, besides the two, as far as guys who aren't playing anymore, the two guys who are the best, they're big. I mean, I guess Chris Bosh is not quite as big of a star as LeBron or whoever, but he was always great. And then Dirk was always phenomenal to deal with too.
Yeah. And I feel like I've heard the same with in respect to Giannis.
I was gonna say Giannis has got to be in this combo now, right?
I've only dealt with Giannis a little bit personally, but I've only heard good things about him.
So, You get a couple guys though, and I think Portland, outside of Dame, really didn't have too many guys that are, I don't know, I won't say antisocial, but just they weren't on that level. CJ, God bless him today.
He's a politician.
Oh God, there was a word salad sandwich. It was incredible. He stood up there for 5 minutes and didn't say a damn thing. I was just blown away.
I've said this the whole time. He's definitely got some Dwayne Wade in him, where he wants to work in media when he's done playing, and so every interview he gives is auditioning for a TV job.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
No, there's no doubt about that. And
I covered Dwayne Wade in Chicago.
That's right. You had him in Chicago on his farewell tour.
He's the king. Well, no, that wasn't the farewell tour.
Well, no, it's still Chicago. It's his farewell tour in Chicago.
Right, but Dwayne Wade was the king of you're listening to him talk, and while he's talking, you think, wow, this is so much great stuff. Like, I can't, like, this is going to be great. And then you go back and listen to it afterwards, and he said absolutely nothing.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's a bad feeling, though, from a media perspective when that happens and you're like, I'm getting good stuff from this guy. And then you go back and you're like, he didn't really break any news or say anything earth-shattering.
Dame and Melo are easily the two best I've ever dealt with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And as far as dudes go, I've never heard anybody say anything otherwise. Like, as far as, like, just sidling up somebody in a locker room in a hallway, those two guys will just go.
Pau Gasol was also great when I had him in Chicago. I remember when
Trailblazers legend Pau Gasol.
Yeah, but no, I had him for 2 years in Chicago, and actually, I remember when Kobe announced that he was going to retire at the end of the season, whatever year that was. And Pau is one of those guys who usually only talks post-game. He never talks pre-game. But we were all in the locker room pre-game, and like Casey and Joe and like the beat writers for the papers went up to Pau and were just like, look, man, we know you only talk post-game, but we really want to talk to you about Kobe. And if you wait until after the games, we're going to miss our deadlines. And he was just like, okay, cool. I'll talk about Kobe now. And so he did, and he was great.
The rare exception when somebody's actually going to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always cool to see. We've got a few questions here before we get going. This is from Leslie. Sean, do you cover all NBA teams these days, or are you more Blazer focused?
I would say more so covering the league at large.
You just happen to live in Portland.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say that I cover the Blazers when it's a story that rises to the national level of interest, which usually means anything to do with Dame. Or let's say a couple years ago, the Blazers signed future Hall of Famer Carmelo Anthony off the street, and he'd been out of the league for a year, and he was trying to resuscitate his career. That was a lot of national interest there. So I'm kind of, when I'm writing about the Blazers, it's kind of more that type of stuff, when it's that type of angle, as opposed to like I'm probably not going to be writing a lot of stories about how Nasir Little's jump shot has improved. That's a great Blazers edge story. That's a great story for Jason at The Athletic, but that's the kind of thing that for BR, for my editors, that's kind of not going to rise to the level of
what's going to make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. Lindsay here, who's actually one of my editors at Blazers, says I love Larry, and he wants to take his kids to the Thorns game. And I think didn't he say he already took his daughters to the Thorns game?
I just heard him say. I mean, I tweeted out some of the quotes like in real time, and so when you're tweeting out the quotes,
it blends together.
You kind of miss stuff, but I maybe he already took her to games, but he did say like he's a huge soccer fan and he wants to take his daughter. Maybe he already did. I don't know, but
he's a Chelsea fan, which great.
I don't. Every year I say I'm going to get into European soccer, and then I just can't bring myself to get up at whatever hours.
It's hard. Like, it's going to be harder for him now coming from Cleveland to Portland. Those 2 hours, hurdle. Man. It's you're getting up at 5 now.
That's the biggest hurdles for it for me. I had it back when I was in college. One year I had a roommate who was from the Netherlands, and so he was all into like European soccer, and so he
getting up to watch Ajax in the morning.
He was always getting up at like 4 a.m. to watch different games, and I'm too, at this point, especially now this point, I'm way too old to be doing that. You
like that, Sprague? A little pull from the Dutch soccer league.
I'm a big Richmond fan. I think what Ted's doing right now is remarkable.
I hate you so much.
I don't know anything about soccer. What am I going to add to this conversation?
Let's kind of get into it. We're about 15 minutes in. People are starting to pile in now. We're up to almost 100 now. What's your general takeaway from the press conference? And then we'll just kind of go person by person, Sean. So general 30,000-foot views, and then we'll go into Neil, Chauncey, and Chris.
So I would say the 2 biggest takeaways, or the 3 biggest takeaways, I think that are important for just kind of the average fan to, take away from media day. One, I mean, this was just kind of business that needed to be gotten out of the way, but the whole team's vaccinated. So that's just something like that's something that's being talked about around the whole league. And that's just, from the sound of it, that's just not something that the Blazers are going to have to worry about at all. So that's good. Everybody's vaccinated. Dame, I was very happy that Dame said something definitively about him thinking it's good to get vaccinated, because we haven't really had that many superstars.
I mean,
come out
has any superstar come out and said that?
Towns.
Well, yeah, but Towns also plays in Minnesota and isn't as visible.
Well, true.
But and so somebody like Dame is probably one of the 10 most famous guys in the league. So for him to come out and definitively say, I got vaccinated because I wanted to protect my family. I think that's a good, I think that might go a long way to counteracting some of the stuff that we've seen from certain other guys on the other side of that discussion. So that I was happy about that. So that's good. I think Dame has never been more definitive than he is right now about wanting to stay in Portland. Like going in, obviously, and there was reason, and I understand there's probably now going to be people who are saying, oh, well, all this stuff was totally unfounded over the summer. No.
No, it wasn't.
During the Olympics, I mean, I know he was very upset after they lost in the first round to Denver, but also during the Olympics, whenever he did those media availabilities, when there were all the rumors about how he's going to ask for a trade soon, it was always, he when he came out, he never said, oh, I'm definitely staying in Portland my whole career. It was, I haven't made a decision one way or the other about what I'm going to do. Like that was kind of his line during the Olympics at all those different press conferences that he gave. This time, I mean, he was talking about, he kind of came into it from a question that somebody asked about getting married. And he kind of used that as a metaphor for, I've been with my wife since we were in college. And so I've stuck with this relationship. I've stuck with, being on the Olympic team. And he basically came into this whole thing about, he finishes what he starts and he's not going to do something that's not him. This is as definitive as I've heard him about wanting to stay in Portland his whole career. So I think a lot of fans who were maybe a little bit uneasy about where that stood, I think a lot of people should have their minds put at ease about that. I mean, now, obviously, they could miss the playoffs this year or lose in the first round again, and then we're right back to where we were and having that conversation again. But I think going in, there's no reason now to think that this is going to be something that people even talk about during the season. So I think that's the most important thing. And then I think the other big thing is just, and I mean, I think a lot of this is just whenever you've had the same coach for 9 years and then there's a new coach that comes in who kind of has a different perspective and a different philosophy. Everybody seemed like they were a little bit refreshed by Chauncey Billups and kind of the different energy that he's bringing from, Terry Stotts. And so that it seemed like everybody was very positive about that.
Yeah. I think going back to the Dame stuff in general, I think you're right as far as the whole idea of his commitment level right now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this has to do with, you look around the NBA landscape right now, packages for Damian Lillard are going to gut a team. Carmelo Anthony from Denver to New York type stuff.
That's the exact thing. I mean, I think a lot of it makes a lot of sense when you look around and just think about like how this summer maybe unfolded. I mean, everybody thought the Blazers should have won that series against Denver with Denver having a bunch of their guys injured, including Jamal Murray. Everybody felt like the Blazers should have won that series. And so they lose that series, even though Dame had one of the best playoff performances of all time in Game 5. And he's looking at it like, okay, what am I really doing here? If I have to do this and we still can't win a first round series against a really injured
shorthanded team. Yeah.
And then, right on top of that, you have everything that went on with the coaching search and all the controversy around that, which we'll get to at some point, because I did ask a couple of people about that. But, that was a whole thing. And like there were fans blaming Dame for, his role in the coaching hire with, the allegations, whatever the case may be. And so between those two things, I think I can understand Dame looking around and just being like, I need to go somewhere else, or I need to at least think about going somewhere else. And I need to, but then, he wins the gold medal at the Olympics. He gets married. He puts his album out.
Got him feeling good.
He's kind of cool. I mean, he was, all that to say, it was a very long-winded way of saying he was very upset about everything that went on, like at the time. But then as the summer went along, he kind of cooled off a little bit. And now, I think the Blazers did on paper get better from last season to this. I think Larry Nance is an upgrade over Derrick Jones Jr. I think
that's the big one. Is the Larry Nance Jr. one really matters?
I think Cody Zeller is going to be an upgrade over Enes Kanter. I think that, you look at the guys that they signed, they brought in individually. I think they did get incrementally better. Now you can look at it and say, is this really going to move the needle from them being a solid playoff team to being a title contender in the West? Probably not, but the team did get better. And I think between all of the good things that happened to Dame in the offseason, like him getting married and him winning the gold medal, and the team did get better. And he also, I think, is kind of, as much as he liked Terry Stotts, I think he's kind of feeling refreshed by like a change of scenery and a change of energy with there being a new coach in there. And it's also, Chauncey being somebody that he also had a relationship with back, going back to when Chauncey was still a player and Dame was kind of at the beginning of his career. They've had that relationship for a long time. I think Dame is more just kind of feeling like, you know what, I'm actually in an okay spot, at least for right now.
Yeah, I think those are good points, Sean. The one thing, my biggest I had a lot of takeaways. One, I was pretty disappointed when McGowan stepped up and basically said that they're not looking to sell the team. I was like, damn it, I want a better owner than this. But
what else is he gonna? What's he gonna say though?
Well, I know I'm not expecting him to say they're for sale. That was my damn.
I would tell you as far as that goes, I think that the most likely scenario is that in 2024 when the new TV deal comes in from the league, and then Jody gets that windfall, I think that's when I would expect her to cash out.
Yeah.
So we're still talking about a few years from now that things are going to be status quo.
Right. I think from the team angle, the Dame stuff I thought was really interesting because when you read the quotes, I don't feel like they match up to what his body language and facial expressions looked like. And what I mean by that is when he stepped up and it was immediately, quick was the first question, I think, to say, how do you feel about the roster? And he kind of chuckled. I don't feel like he really gave us solid answers. Like in the term of, he didn't sell me that he was really all that excited about the moves that they did or did not make. Now, I do think he'd agree with what you said, Sean, of they got incrementally better on paper. But he's also got to be honest, right? Did those moves make them a title contender in the West? I mean, barring injury, I don't know how many people would say yes to that. So I didn't get a vibe that he viewed the offseason as a big success. I think he views it as this is just going to be a different journey with a new coach, and I guess we'll just see how this plays out. It was real reminiscent to me of first day back to school stuff. I think he is excited. I think your point on what's the package for Dame, well, whatever it is, that team that he's going to is going to get stripped. And I think this is first day stuff. He sees all his guys, camp starts, the season's about to be here, the building's going to be full soon.
Yeah.
What's this going to be in February when it's cold, it's wet, and they're 7th in the West, and maybe they're on a losing streak? Is it going to be the same excitement? I don't know. So I think the Dame stuff was interesting because I did feel that rejuvenation that, hey, it's not that bad here, but I also didn't get a vibe of he was all that enthused about what happened in the offseason, roster-wise.
Well, I'll have to go back and look at the video again. I only saw it in real time, so I'll have to go back and see if I agree with that assessment. I definitely think there was some element of he kind of realizes that it just sort of is what it is, and that whatever bigger moves. Yeah. The other part of it is also like, I think Dame is smart enough to know that the only really big move that they could make, given what the roster is and what the salary cap situation is, would be something involving CJ. And I don't know that Dame necessarily wants CJ. I mean, I think he would be okay with it if it was like whatever the trade was for something that really, like, I think Ben Simmons he would probably be on board with, or whatever, something of that caliber. But
all NBA
CJ's
caliber,
still, right? Exactly. But also at the same time, CJ is his guy, and like he's talked over time about he's never going to outright go and ask for one of his teammates to get traded because all of his teammates are his friends and he values those relationships. So he's not going to, make
he never wants anybody traded ever.
No. But so I think he kind of realizes that the only thing to do is to trade CJ, and also like that's probably never going to happen. And also he's not sure if he wants that to happen. So I think he's kind of just sort of accepted what the situation is going to be. And at a certain, his family lives here. His now wife, longtime fiance, now wife, just had twins earlier this year. So they've got kids. His whole extended family lives out here. Like, I think he's kind of realizing, I've got it pretty good here. I'm going to get my jersey retired. I'm going to have a statue built for me. I'm probably going to have another street named after me around the Rose Garden, like Clyde Drexler and Jack Ramsey did. Mm-hmm. So he might just feel like he's in an okay spot. And again, they could lose in the first round again. And then he looks around and said, well, I gave the new regime, I gave the Chauncey and this current version of the roster a chance, and it's just not happening. Maybe we're talking about that again in a year. But for right now, I think Dame is, I think he's all in as of right now.
Sean, that's 100%. I'll add. I agree with everything you just said there, and I guess that's my overall point. It felt like more of a, I'm here. I'm basically, the deadline thing is not going to happen. People float that out, right? Like, is Dame going to get traded by the deadline?
No,
I think
that was always insane.
No, I know.
He's also never, like, Dame is also the kind of guy where I don't think he would ever make that kind of demand during the season, because
I don't either.
He knows that would be something that then they would have to get asked about every day, and it would become a distraction, and that's the kind of thing that Dame has always been very smart about avoiding during his career. So I think that if anything were to happen on that front, it wouldn't. And I said this at the beginning of this offseason when the noise kind of started to pick up. My stance the whole time has been the earliest that anything is really going to happen here is going to be next offseason.
Yeah, right. And that's my point. Is I think today he just reaffirmed to everybody, I'm all in. Let's see what this season's going to bring.
Yeah. That's the thing with Dame. I don't think anybody really is going to lose their mind. Some people were, but about Dame wanting or demanding out at the deadline or anything like that. That doesn't match who Dame has been his entire career. And
right.
You and I, Sprague, we talked about this. It was one of the first things we talked about when we launched the podcast, because it was so prevalent in front of mind then. And we both said the same thing. Listen, if it's going to happen, it's going to be next summer. It's not going to be right now, because the organization's in a position right now where they have to switch everything up. And for everybody upset about the subscriber notifications, I removed it from this screen. Sorry about that, guys. You guys couldn't hear it because you're not on it, but it was a really obnoxious, like, disco Christmas music for 5 subscribers in a row. And I'm sitting here just like, people who were watching it probably saw me making very, very stupid looks on my face, because I was scrolling through all of the different sources that are in each of the different scenes trying to find which one it was. And I finally found it. I was like, oh God, but we got through like 4 of them in a row. It was like, dun, 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 dun. It was over the top of everything you guys are saying. So sorry about that, guys. But thank you guys for subscribing all in a row. I appreciate you. If you haven't already, please like, rate, review, subscribe. Do all those things. Jack Ramsay's Blue Wire Podcast. Sean Hyken, Brandon Sprague here, going over Media Day stuff. More people want more disco Christmas. No, we'll get the Jack Ramsay's official CD out later, the playlist. But
get Dame to rap over the disco Christmas music.
That's a good call.
That's a good collab. Brought to you by Abby's. But the general sense that I got from Dame was the thing that he liked was Larry Nance Jr. being added to the team. I think that's a tangible thing where he was like, okay, yeah, no, I see where you're going with you. I'm picking up what you're putting down right now. The other stuff was just like, hey, listen, Cody's a nice guy. Cool. Tony's a nice guy. Cool. Ben McLemore, pretty jump shot. Cool. But in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. Larry Nance Jr., I don't know if he moves the needle enough for you to like really hone in on it, but is he
definitely
impactful?
An upgrade?
Yes.
He's an upgrade over Derek Jones. I think that's pretty easy.
But not just even an upgrade over Derek Jones. He's an upgrade in the area they probably need, or they need in the 2 things that they need the most, which is defensive versatility and playmaking. Those are the 2 things that they just have not had. It just hasn't been there. Even in the LaMarcus era, the only guy that they had outside of the point guards was Nick. Batum was the only guy who was acting as that additional grease between the offense. While Mason Plumlee was a nice passer, further down the line, LaMarcus can make passes out of the post. Guys that take a step back and allow others to succeed. Nick was the only guy that team has had, this franchise has had really in the last 7 years, that kind of fit that mold. So you could see Dame's eyes kind of light up like, yeah, no, I could see that. And Nance hit that on his press conference, but we'll kind of dive into it now. Show needs a producer who's not poor Danny. No, Danny just needs to produce better. Once we move into the studio here in the next couple weeks, that'll be changing. So the professional upgrades. Oh yeah, the studio's almost built out back, man. I've been now that I'm off the crutches, Sprague's seen the pictures.
It looks good. It looks really good.
Slowly, you gotta send me that. I need to get that exclusive.
Yeah, I'll send you that. It's all built out. The insulation is almost all in. And what would normally take me a day to do the insulation, it has taken me like 2 weeks because I can't move. So it's literally cut a piece and then slowly drag it over there and put it up on the wall. It's a slow process, but yeah, it's fun. But let's dive back into the press conference as a whole. Your 30,000 foot of what we've kind of gone into kind of in our pocket. Let's start with Neil. What was your overall takeaway from Neil, and then kind of go point by point from your perspective in the building?
Well, I've never heard this from him before, but this is the deepest team of this era of Blade. I think it's almost he's obligated to say that every year.
I didn't get it in the Neilo chart is kind of disappointing. If I'm honest, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that was an oversight.
I missed like 3.
I want to believe that he has a note card somewhere on that press conference table, and it says, "Neil, tell them this is the deepest team this year." Like, I feel like he tells himself to tell you guys that.
I think that's just an easy enough thing that, and every one of those years, you can probably look at it on paper and say, yeah, I can see why somebody would say that. Like, it's not a completely ridiculous claim to make, I don't think, because, given the reputation that Robert Covington had around the league, and also, the reaction that people had to Derrick Jones at the time was, oh, that's a nice mid-level signing. He didn't get a lot of minutes in Miami, but that's an athletic guy with some upside. You can understand why Neil would look at that and say, hey, look, this is the deepest team that we've had. Like, you can understand where somebody would say that, and it's not ridiculous. The year before, I mean, I think everybody kind of thought that the Whiteside thing was or some people thought that the Whiteside thing was going to work out a little bit better than it did. Maybe not any of us on this stream right now, but you can understand, again, every single one of these teams, you can look at them individually and say, I understand why somebody could say this was a deeper team than last year.
Because they've gotten better, but it's because they started from a place that was so bad.
Right.
That
just always ends up being the case.
And I guess, yeah, that's where I was going to go with, like, I'm fine if you believe it, whatever. I can't change your mind on that. But doesn't it kind of reminded me when Jason was like the definition of insanity. If you've lost 4 or 5 years in the first round, shouldn't you stop telling us how deep and talented the team is? Like, at what point does that become, it's just fluff. It's just something to say it.
It's an easy talking point, and nobody's gonna be able to definitively refute it, and it's something that sounds good. So this is kind of just what we've known from this general manager the entire time that he's been there. He's all about winning the press conference.
So I'm gonna say something here that maybe will catch you both off guard.
Okay.
I thought this was one of Neil's best press conferences.
Oh, I thought so. I mean,
he didn't say anything, so yes, it was one of his
with the exception of when I asked him about some of the reporting from OPB and Defector that has come out about the investigation into the allegations against Chauncey not being maybe as thorough as they.
And I understand why you want to ask that, Sean.
I mean, I think it needs to be asked. He has not talked since the Chauncey press conference back in June. And so stuff has come out about it since then, and he needs to be asked about it again. And he basically made it was basically a nicer version of that's proprietary.
It was. He did name you too.
You asking that.
Sean.
He did name, yes, but yeah. But I mean, he still basically no commented it. And then also Chris McGowan, when I asked him about it later on, he basically said all this stuff about how great Chauncey was and completely ignored that part of the question. So I still think that they haven't handled anything about that whole story very well at all.
No, they haven't.
But as far as the basketball stuff, I would agree with you that there's nothing in this Neil Olshey press conference that is going to cause people to just like slap their forehead. No,
they clearly rehearsed this. Mm-hmm. They did their work, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing for anybody out there who's losing their mind. No. And this is what it's supposed to look like. We're supposed to sit here as media when it's all said and done and go, there wasn't crap there. Like that's a successful press conference from the organization's point of view. You got out there, you marked down what you needed to say, you stuck to the script. The last 2 times that they have gone out publicly, they have gotten their ass handed to them because they did not stick to the script.
Right.
And they got crushed, rightfully so, because they just, every time somebody opened their mouth, somebody else was putting a foot in it. And so from overall effort standpoint, they did well, at least in the basketball regards. They did have a good answer, obviously, on the vaccine side. That's not something anything's going to push back on. Obviously, not a great answer on the investigation stuff. The McGowan questions, which we'll get to in a little bit, were a giant word salad as it pertains to both streaming options and current ownership. But otherwise, kind of a nothing burger. I joked I made the Neil O bingo charts to kind of to tick down all of the different boxes of what kind of to expect. And while he did hit him, he didn't have a bifurcate. He didn't have something so wildly outlandish. You're just sitting there like, Neil, you got to be kidding me, man.
Now, there was no point where he just randomly goes off on a tangent about how it's a false media narrative that they have 3 small guards.
Yeah. He had one point that he made during that. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Sean, can you tell me? I missed the very beginning. I was on a business call, so I caught it late. I saw the quote. Did somebody really ask his relationship with Dame? And basically his answer was Dame got married and released an album. And
yeah.
That was it.
No
that was
correlation.
The thing.
It was like, what?
That's where he went a little off script. He compared
Well, he was
that.
basically just I think he was asked like where he thinks Dame's head is at right now in regards to. And again, I haven't gone back and listened to any of the audio.
It's a little bit of a weird one though. You had to reel it back in to kind of.
He basically said, well, not to be glib, but Dame got married and won a gold medal. So like,
yeah, I was like, what's that got to do with your relationship?
Well, no, I think it was more, I think the question, again, I have to go back and listen to it, but I think the question was more of like an overarching, like, what is your sense of where Dame's head is at? And I think that was Neil's way of joking. Like, yeah, Dame's had a pretty good summer.
Yeah. Okay.
He got married and won a gold medal.
Oh, Neil did have one line that I remember what it was now.
What was it?
The number 1 offense in the history of the league post trade deadline. He did.
Oh, that's
he
right.
did sneak that one in there.
Yeah,
I'm going through my notes right now, and I'm like, where is it at? Where is it at? Where is it at? Ah, there's the batshit crazy. Yeah, he snuck that one into me. But otherwise they did pretty well. And I'll say this before we move into Chauncey, the narrative or the tact or whatever the plan was that they went in here, in my opinion, they did a very, very good job of not saying the C word. And by C word, I mean championship. They actively avoided saying championship over and Chauncey danced around championship.
He was asked directly about championship.
He was asked, and he was like, well, you always want to shoot for that.
Yeah.
Yep. He would not say the word. And
right.
I just be about it. And because the last 2 years they've gone out and said we're a title contending team, and then they got their asses handed to them. They've learned from that. Remember the big dinner they had in Lake Oswego where where it is, and it's like, why you haven't earned that. You're not a team that people are penciling in as a finalist. Stop that.
Well, it was really the big one was, after they made the conference finals and got their asses kicked by the Warriors without Durant and Iguodala. Then the next, that was like probably that exit interview was just a total victory lap, I think, for Neil. And then, because remember, he and Terry both signed their extensions like minutes before they walked in for their exit interviews. And then that press conference or the media day the following year, which was the year they brought in Whiteside and who else was that?
Bazemore, Hezonja.
Yeah. That was like. That was as positive as I've ever seen anybody. They were talking about like, look, we made the conference finals. Now we can win a title. And that was just not the case.
Yeah, it went sideways really quickly. Somebody says, nobody penciled in the Suns last season as a finalist either. No, the Suns weren't going out there telling everybody they were title contenders either. That's the point.
They also weren't a team that was on the kind of trajectory that you could expect would make the finals because they had not made the playoffs in 10 years. And it's not very, I mean, I know they had traded for Chris Paul and Chris Paul makes every team he's on better, but
out of the playoffs to the finals is very unheard of.
We're basically just talking about like the Celtics when they brought in Pierce or when they brought in Garnett and Ray Allen. And then I can't remember the last time that happened before that.
It's a once in a generation type.
The Cavs when they got LeBron back, like they, sucked and then LeBron.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a totally different thing though.
But again, it's the same kind of situation where you're talking about it just doesn't happen all that often. And those teams just, they don't act like that. Speaking of acting and going about their business, this is the first real basketball press conference we had from Chauncey. It was basketball. Even with questions about it, it was still but for me, looking at that, they were a team, or they were a team kind of all on message, all on the same page. And I thought Chauncey, for the most part, acquitted himself pretty damn well. What was your general takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, this is all very it's all very, media day, start of training camp. Everybody has the most optimistic possible outlook about anything. But just taking everything that he said at face value, you have to like what you're hearing about, wanting to hold guys accountable by name. And as he put it, putting an address on it, and the team wanting to get better defensively. And, it's all, it could end up all being lip service, but those are the things that he said were the things that you want to hear from a coach on the first day of training camp. So again, he's never done the job before. So it's going to take the whole season to see whether all of this comes true or not, or whether this is all just kind of lip service at the beginning of camp. But, from a pure basketball level and just taking everything he said at face value, there's not really a lot there not to like.
Yeah, I feel like his year one's going to be interesting because the leadership quality, the being real with people quality, I think that's absolutely there. I also got boy, oh boy, Scott Brooks, Roy Rogers is really going to be helping this coaching staff a lot this year and teaching Chauncey kind of the ropes of what a season is. Color me a little skeptical just in this regard. First of all, Chauncey was fantastic. He strikes me as kind of a no bullshit guy. He's going to tell you how it is, and I love that. I do kind of need to see some of this before I go all in, because the accountability thing, like when Dame and CJ were asked, it's like, what does it mean to be accountable? It means to be accountable. It's like, okay, but if Dame is not helping on defense or his guys getting right past him, like how accountable are we really going to hold the two big stars of the team? So I liked what I heard. I'll admit that, but
need to
some
see the
of
practice.
that stuff, I need to see that play out for 20 to 30 games before I fully invest into it.
Oh, no, go ahead, John.
This is all just very much, give the grade as an incomplete. We haven't seen what he's going to look like as a head coach, but it's all just, got to wait and see.
I found it pretty, not necessarily odd, but it definitely stood out about his emphasis on the assistant coaches that he brought in, Scott Brooks, like delineation of duties. Did you guys notice that? He was very much, Scott Brooks is my right-hand guy to handle all of the administrative stuff. And then something that hasn't been talked about a ton, Sprague, you and I have talked about this, is that Chauncey, as much as he's talking about accountability, defense, he's relying on Roy Rogers to run the defense. It is not Chauncey Billups who is installing the defense. He is bringing the defense from Roy Rogers. And this is, I think, akin to what Terry Stotts did with David Vanterpool, where he was the one who installed the defense and put that in. But I think there's just misconception of Chauncey as the defensive-minded guy that's going to be responsible for this, that, and the other. I think Chauncey kind of went out of his way to illustrate that, and Yusuf Nurkic did a little bit further as he started talking about Roy Rogers, is what coaches are going to do and how they're going to be utilized and what the expectations are. And they kind of, and typically I don't think you get a lot of the behind the scenes, so to speak, of outside of the head coach, because the head coach is the only one ever talking. Like, we don't ever hear, the previous administration. We didn't hear from Tibbetts. We didn't hear from Moran. We didn't hear from Vanderpool. They had great relationships with the players, but you don't get that forward facing. And Chauncey kind of just laid that out. Did that catch you guys at all in how he did that? No, nothing.
Oh yeah, that's something. Sorry, I thought that's how I was gonna go. No, I absolutely that popped to me. I couldn't remember the exact quote, but the previous presser I know went awry. But I kind of got that vibe too. It's like, hey, I'm not this defensive guru guy, even though I played for the Pistons and we won a championship because we had a nasty defense. Mm-hmm. So I think that the learning curve there. I wanted to ask you, Sean, on the defensive part. What is the number that is acceptable for them? They have to get to this ranking in defense for you, for us to go, yep, definitely. You know what I mean? Like, you're making the right strides. I was trying to think of this, and obviously finishing last or near the bottom is not going to be acceptable, but is it 20th? Is it 18th? I didn't hear a number given, and I don't know what that number is internally, but I'm curious what how they measure it in terms of stacking up defensively within the league.
If you can get to middle of the pack, 15 to 18, and the offense stays as good as it's been, then I think they're in okay shape.
Yeah, they was it Larry that came up there and he was talking about where, a top 3-ish offense and we get to a middle of the pack defense or a top 10 defense.
He was the one that really laid that out, and I would agree with that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is if all of those things hit, yeah, you've got yourself a hell of a team. But you're relying on a lot of things that haven't hit for 10 years to all of a sudden hit. And it's like, a few of those hitting? Yeah, for sure.
Well, how do you guys think the accountability thing is going to go with the two defenders that we all know, and we can't say their name out loud because it's blasphemous, but like, I'm curious how you guys view the accountability part of this, because it really is going to start with them truly buying in, is it not?
Oh, 100%. But here, I've got a particular question for you, Sean.
Okay.
I think what irked Yusuf Nurkic and some other guys, as we have heard, as far as the accountability, was more than maybe Dame got a free pass. Because I think every team in the NBA has a star who gets an offensive burden that they get. The understanding is, yeah, they do get a bit of a pass because of the offensive workload, regardless of what system you run.
Right.
Like, even Giannis takes plays off. Joel Embiid takes plays off. When you have that burden, you're allowed a pass.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that maybe that pecking order of passes went beyond Damian Lillard and to CJ McCollum, to Enes Kanter, to Carmelo Anthony, and went to the veterans and the younger guys, who I think Nurk kind of fell in that, because even though he was a veteran, he's not a near 30 veteran last year. And he hasn't been somebody they could count on with his injuries. I think he was chastised. I think you had Ant. I think you had Nas. I think you had basically everybody but that group of four guys really kind of get some accountability falling off their backs. I think that's kind of what they were alluding to. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Did you get that kind of feeling at all, or am I just talking out of my ass here?
I don't know if that's a feeling I got specifically from the press conferences today, but I don't think you're completely off base there, that guys besides Dame were maybe getting the Dame pass. And I don't know whether that stems from just like all of those guys were so comfortable with Terry that Terry wasn't really going to hold them all accountable in the same way, or, how much of it was just, emanating from the top of the organization. We all know how highly Neil views CJ, and we all know how, how highly he views, a lot of these other guys besides Dame, that maybe that was going to be the route that they would go. I kind of think that this is where Chauncey, having been a player at as high of a level as he was, and having been on a defense-focused championship team, and having the red pedigree as a player that he had, I think there's a chance that resonates with guys, and especially with Dame, because, we know that Dame has a relationship with Chauncey. He's somebody that he respects and looks up to as somebody who played the same position. It's going to hit differently when it's somebody like that talking to him about you need to be better on defense than it is somebody like Terry Stotts, who, for as much as Dame likes Terry was not an NBA player. Terry was not somebody that, he could relate to from personal experience. So I think there is something to be said for that.
Real quick, just thank you for everybody coming in. We got about 150 across all the platforms right now. Appreciate you all stopping by. I'm going to put the link for the pod in there for whatever platform you're on. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast, Jack Ramsays. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel here. Don't worry, these stupid notifications have been turned off, and they will never, ever, ever come back when we're going live, because that's a nightmare. Like, rate, review, subscribe, follow at Hyken, at Brandon Sprague, at Danny Meringue on social media. We've got Sean Hyken here from Bleacher Report. Obviously, my co-host Brandon Sprague from 1080 The Fan, 6 to 9 in the morning. And me, I don't do anything anymore. I just do this. So,
well, Danny, imagine being as cool as Sean, where your handle is just Hyken. It's just your last name. There's nothing else involved.
I've told the story before. I had to fight to get it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you have a squatter?
Back when I worked, so there was a squatter. There was somebody who had that account since 2010, and they had like 0 tweets and were following 0 people. And back when I was at USA Today, I want to say this was like 7 or 8 years ago, I had to get the social media editor at USA Today, who, all these big media companies have somebody at Twitter. That's how like they get their journalists verified and stuff. And so I had to be like, hey, this handle that I want is inactive. Can you talk to whoever your person is at Twitter and get it and get that for me? And then they ended up being able to do that in like a day. Damn.
See, I need to make that happen. There's somebody sitting on at Danny Meringue on IG, so it's just at D Meringue on IG, and they haven't used it or done anything with it in
IG
years.
is a lot more of a opaque process, I think, than Twitter is. It took me forever to get verified on Instagram, even though Instagram is owned by Facebook, and I had professional page on Facebook that was verified. I don't use it anymore because I don't use Facebook anymore. But like,
You got to do it for the olds, buddy.
Good for you.
no,
Good for you.
No, I deleted my Facebook account like a year ago, and I have not even once. It has not occurred to me to check.
Yes.
But
2 years, haven't looked back.
But anyway, I figured that because I had a verified Facebook account, it should be pretty easy for
transition,
me to get
right?
verified on Instagram. And it just wasn't. It even like I hit up my editors at BR and was like, hey, you guys obviously probably have contacts at these social companies. Can you get me verified? And for the longest time, even they couldn't, because it's just super random how they do it. But then eventually my editor emailed me. This was maybe like a year ago. My editor emailed me and said, hey, have you ever found any way to get verified on Instagram? And I said, no. And he was like, well, good to know. And then like a day later, I was verified. So he must have found a way to make it happen. But
I need to find a way to get the squatters off mine. That's what I've come. I need this to happen. Somebody said Facebook sucks from Dragon GP. That's great.
That's a good call. Good call.
yeah.
But here, the overall tone of the press conference, I think, was kind of it was what it was as far as Neil and Chauncey on message. I think in general they did a good job.
Yeah.
They communicated what they needed to communicate. They didn't do it. Did you have anything, Brandon, that was like,
well,
what the hell?
No. Not really from them. I mean, I'm always naturally going to be skeptical of this organization in this era for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a prove it. I was more curious of all the people that talked today. I know Dame was going to give us good stuff. I was really curious to hear Nurk. I really wanted to hear Nurk. Yeah. There's a lot of conversation about Nurk. And
he was wound up.
Chauncey is going to use him and how he's buying in now. And, I really wanted to hear his explanations or his thoughts on his role and the way this is all going to shape up during the season. So that was the one I was most looking forward to of everybody today.
Okay. Let's hit on McGowan real quick, and then we'll go right into Nurk, because I think we'll spend a ton of time on Dame. The McGowan stuff mostly had to do with the streaming options.
Yeah.
General thoughts, not great, Bob. The Twitter feed and the comment sections were blowing up pretty quickly. Guys not happy.
Well, I have a lot of people in my life who are big Timbers fans who have been screaming about how terrible the situation is at their new local
that they're
TV
currently
partner
dealing with. Yeah.
For a long time. So, I mean, for me personally, I have cable, so I'm not really this doesn't really affect me at all. But I certainly feel for people who had
cut one cord here.
Well, right. I mean, the cord cutting thing is so funny to me because
it's over now.
Well, yeah. I understand. I mean, I'm not talking. I'm talking about even just before this. I'm talking about just in general. Like, there's all of the these things like, oh, if you just subscribe to this streaming service and this streaming service, you're going to save money. You're not going to have to get cable. But at a certain point, they all add up to so much. To at a point where it's not even cheaper than getting cable. So at that point, you might as well just get cable. I don't think I'll ever go away from cable as much as I hate dealing with Comcast and everybody hates dealing with their cable provider. It's to the point where the other options aren't even cheaper if you're trying to watch live sports, which is the main thing I watch on TV. So
I think
if you just watch TV shows and you're not a sports person, in which case there's probably no reason for you to be watching this stream right now. But
we appreciate you, and please subscribe.
If you're just somebody who watches TV shows, then you can just be like, okay, well, I'll just get Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max, and then I'm good. Yeah. But if you're watching anything that requires anything live, to me, there's never been
a good solution
upside to getting one of this the cord cutting services over cable. So
it was great at one point, because I did it a few years ago and I really liked it, and then. To your point, pricing, YouTube TV now is $80. Fubo TV is $80. You can call Comcast.
Still have to get Comcast for your internet, so you might as well just bundle it if you're in it, and that's going to be more money. If I hate that this has turned into a commercial for Comcast, but I don't know. That's just where I come down on it. It's easier to just get cable than deal with all these different streaming.
You're 100% right. I'm paying $80 right now, and then my internet is $80, and I'm like, my brother just got full every channel on Comcast. He got internet for $140. I'm like, I'm paying $160. What just happened here? I went from cord cutting to losing money.
Oh, well, you could be like me and work for the company and not get that great of a deal. So,
well, can we be honest about something here? If you want to trot out and talk about the business aspect of life, I was curious about the concerts and stuff. That's not that a big deal. But don't
They
try
waited
out.
too long. They waited too long to require vaccines. That's a personal gripe that I have. I had tickets.
For sure.
I had tickets for Guns N' Roses about a month ago. And I decided, and I bought the tickets in like mid-July when it seemed like, cases were going down and it was probably going to be fine. The concert happened to be right at the height of like the Delta surge when when it seemed like things were getting really bad again. I just decided not to go. And then like the next day they said, oh, in 2 weeks, we're going to start requiring vaccination proof for any event at the Rose Garden. And I was just like, you guys couldn't have done that 2 weeks ago. So I could have gone to the GNR show.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to do a press conference and answer questions, maybe not do it if you don't have an update on streaming, like to be like, well, we'll give you more updates in later. It's like, but this is what this press conference is for.
I think it's more just that this is the opportunity for somebody to talk. If you're him, the last time McGowan talked before this was Media Day in 2019.
It's been a while.
It's been, I think it's more just like, we have everybody here for the press conference. Let's just get this one out of the way.
By the way, Chris is here. Yeah.
We're never going to hear from Jody, are we?
Oh,
no God, no.
No chance.
No. And speaking of, that's a great transition from the radio host. Chris's comments on ownership. The team is not currently up for sale. And what was the other one? We have the full support of Jody. She's very involved.
Long term.
I believe that we'll if I can find a futures bet where I can say that this team is sold by 2025, I will take it. I will take it and run.
Well, 2024, I think, and I said this, I think, earlier in the stream. I don't remember if I said this when we were on the air or not, but 2024 is when the national TV deal is up for renewal, and it seems like they're going to get another huge payday from
It sounds like it's going to be enormous.
From ESPN and from Turner, and maybe they get like Google or Amazon or one of these streaming only companies involved this
and
time.
You're probably looking at expansion at that point too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a huge payout from that stuff probably in about 3 years. And so if you're Jody, you hang on for 3 more years. The team is gonna still sell out. It's gonna basically be status quo. For right now, Dame is still engaged and wants to be here. So as long as you have a guy of that caliber, you're still going to sell tickets. You're still going to sell jerseys. You're still going to make plenty of money. So I think if you're her, you hang on. And then once that new TV deal comes in, you get the payout from that. And then you cash out on the team. And I think NBA teams are still going to be worth about $2 billion by then. So she can really cash out probably in about 3 years. That would be my guess for how that goes down.
That's kind of the same feeling that I'm going to have. As soon as the expansion fees, the new TV deal comes through, they're going to be out, which, hey, if they want to do them, great. I want somebody here for the long haul. I want somebody.
I'd probably do the same thing if I were in their position. It's like you hang on to this for 3. It's not like they're losing money right now. They still sell out the arena. They still
came out ahead during COVID. So it's a money printing machine.
You hang on to this for 3 more years, then you're going to get a huge payday. Then you can also still cash out for the same money that you'd get for it right now or more. That's probably what I would do as well.
Yeah, that's all found money for her too. That's not any of that money wasn't something she got. You know what I mean? Like that was
it was her brother's team.
Good work if you can find it. Speaking of good work, Jusuf Nurkic wants to put in more work in the post, and his coach is basically all but guaranteed it. There was a quote that Nurk had where he said, "So Dame or CJ will have 3 or 4 points less apiece, but I'll be more involved. I'll have more passes." When we're talking about that accountability, it's kind of what I was gearing up for, was this Nurk point. What happens if Nurk doesn't get all these touches he's been promised? You know, if there's a guy on this team that's good, is the boiling point? It's not Dame, it's not CJ, it's Nurk.
And he's got his contract
coming
up too.
Contract year, clutch. New coach, all these promises. Like, everybody keeps pointing to Dame. Make sure Dame's happy. Well, that's entirely true. I think it's easier to satiate and keep Dame on the level than it is Jusuf Nurkic.
I mean, how about with Nurk? I mean, it would be great if Nurk has, the kind of year that he wants to have. But how about Nurk, A, stay healthy, and B, not foul out in like 15 minutes in every playoff game before demanding I have to have this many touches.
Yeah. And go ahead, Brandon.
I was just going to say, I that's kind of my thing, is like, I obviously can see the value that he brings. I just find this entitled kind of approach odd. Like,
after what he just went through in the playoffs.
Did you watch what happened against Jokic?
This is all the stuff I think that, and for all the talk of wow, he's changed so much since the Denver days when, the thing with his role compared to Jokic was like something that there was tension about. This is all just kind of the same stuff. And I think for a while, because Dame is such a great leader and because Dame took him under his wing, like they could kind of paper over it a little bit, but it seems like it's all just kind of still there.
Well, yeah, I mean, take a look at this. He talks about Dame, Babo, his guy, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But he's also in the same breath saying Dame's going to get a few less shots because this is about me right now. And I'm not going to step on anybody's willingness or want to get more money, to get more touches, because that's how you get paid in this league. Very, 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 very few people get paid on things outside of scoring and playmaking. A couple of guys get paid defensively. That's it. It's a small list because those are replaceable. Shot creators and playmakers are the most valuable thing in the NBA. And so if you show you can do it, you can get paid. So I get where Jusuf Nurkic is coming from because I think we're all in agreement right here. This is Nurk's one and only chance for a legit payday, right?
Yeah. He's clearly not happy with the contract that he has now, as we have seen going back. And, the agency that he's with is known for getting guys paid. And so I think he wants some of that for himself. But again, this is kind of a prove it year for him. He needs, like I said, he needs to prove that he can stay healthy, which has been an issue for him throughout the last several years, and B, that he can be counted on in the playoffs. And you saw, I mean, he was super impactful when he was on the court during the Denver series, but he got in foul trouble so much that, him not being able to be on the court as much as maybe he should have been able to be. And, that was one, I don't think it was the reason, but it was one of the reasons why they lost that series.
Well, Sean, I would ask Nerlens Noel how he feels about that agency today. But that being said, lawsuits aside,
Ooh.
you guys
you think Nurk can do Dame a solid and finesse an Adele collab for his next album?
Oh, there you go.
That would be fantastic.
I mean,
Let me just ask you guys a basketball question then. So he wants more touches. He wants more points. He wants to get paid. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come with less Dame, less CJ, less everybody, really, if that's to happen.
Which is not exactly what you typically see.
Well, is that better basketball? Just from a basketball sense, is that better for them as a team?
Yeah, it is, because Dame's usage rate is historically high. CJ's is not exactly far off. But
you're also relying on Nurk to finish better and to stay out of
not just that.
To rely on him more.
The big thing
if he can hold up his end of the bargain, I think it's a good thing. But
even if you take all of this away, if you're just talking just straight math, you're talking about a guy in his prime willingly giving up something that he has shown throughout his entire career he is not willing to give up.
Right.
Damian Lillard, his usage rate has increased, and he's taken on more burden. I think he trusts guys, but to an extent. I think when you drop a 50-plus point playoff game in one of the most obscene playoff games ever, and you're looking around and nobody else is helping, that's not going to help the trust factor. I think that those things hit, and for as much as we talk about, well, if Dame just does this, and if CJ just does this, and Covington does this, it's all Terry's fault. It's like, no, guys, it's not, because it comes down fundamentally to the players. If Dame wanted to get Nurk more touches last year under Terry Stotts, does anybody with any bit of rational thinking think in their brain that Damian Lillard couldn't have gotten Jusuf Nurkic more touches? No. Nobody thinks that. No, nobody in their right mind thinks that. And everybody wants to say, oh, it's all Terry's fault. No, these guys got to where they are doing what they have done well. And what Dame has done well is be that lead pick and roll guy, be that high usage guy. CJ McCollum has done that and been incredibly efficient as a mid-range shot creator and three-point shooter. As good as Nurk is, he has not risen to that level for any sustained period to build that trust. Otherwise, I think Terry bore this out over the years. If you showed you could deliver consistently, what did you get? You got to see the ball. But if you didn't, that leash got short. I don't know. That's when I look at this, I would love to see.
So where's it going?
This better brand of basketball. But like you said, Sprague, I've got to see it. I don't think it's just this magical cure of Chauncey. I think you've got to get to the players, and Chauncey is a part of that. But you have got to get the players to buy into a big, big change.
So, Sean, wouldn't you say it's a bit of a danger zone, right? In the where is this going if he's not getting those touches? Like, how soon into the season are we going to hear from Nurkic being a little unhappy?
And he's not the kind of guy that has the kind of standing to really like to do that, because like what are his, like if he goes in and like he's not happy with his role, he asks for a trade. It's not like what's his trade value around the league. It's probably not that high.
I've asked around
Because,
this. It's decent, but it's not.
Well, sure, but also then the other thing then you would have to keep in mind is that whoever trades for him is going to have to pay him whatever he wants to get paid next summer.
Yep.
And again, given
And
the
Portland needs a
agency
big
that
back
he's-
in return, which limits the windows.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm very interested to see how this plays out. And I know that, the message from the organization is just how excited he is about his new role and how great of a relationship he has with Chauncey already. But, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. A question that just came in here, which I've been asked this a few times. I don't think we've ever really talked about it. This is from Mike Terry. Is it a surprise that Terry Stotts is still unemployed?
Well, I think there are just not, I mean, the way that the job stuff shook out, what I had heard, and I think, Dan, you probably heard this also, is that if Brooklyn had beaten Milwaukee in the second round, they were going to fire Budenholzer, and Rick Carlisle was probably going to get the Bucks job, and that would have left the Indy job up for Terry, and he was kind of seen as the front runner for that job
because he spent some time in Indiana.
Right, and I think they wanted an experienced coach, and they wanted somebody who had playoff experience and was established, and like that was.
And they wanted somebody who was friendly with the players,
right? And after the whole Nate Bjorkgren thing, they kind of wanted to go in the opposite direction. But then when the Bucks won that series and the Bucks job and their job did not come open, then I think Rick Carlisle, instead jumped at that Indy job. And that just
Terry didn't want to coach in Orlando.
I actually just listened to Terry about a week ago, was on Sarah Spain's podcast on ESPN.
Yes.
And he basically, first of all, he's getting paid for 2 more years.
Yeah,
so
he's getting paid very well.
Yeah, and I haven't talked to him super in depth. Like, we've texted a little bit over the summer, but just kind of like, hey, how you doing? Not anything super in depth. I get the sense that he does want to be a head coach again, but he's not going to take an assistant job just to take an assistant job. He's getting paid the next couple of years regardless. I think
he won 400 games and coached for 9 years and went to the Western Conference
Finals. They made the playoffs
Finals.
8 out of 9 years. And
let's not act like he's a bum.
Yeah, it's for everybody out there that wants to, like, Terry has his faults and he has his flaws. Yeah. Nobody here is going to argue that, but he's also better than average. It ran
its course. I mean, it's not very often that somebody is an NBA coach is in the same place for 9 years. I think the idea that they needed a fresh voice and he had just kind of run his course, I think that's totally legitimate. Do I love the way they handled the coaching search? No, but that's a totally different discussion.
Well, Sean, I mean, they had a coaching search, but before they even started, all names were thrown out there. They hadn't even talked to anybody yet. What are you talking about?
What's funny is those same names that were out there in February before Terry was ever fired.
Weird. That's really
crazy
weird.
How that works.
All the many candidates that there were. There definitely
the two people that we had heard.
There was definitely more than one candidate,
right,
that was ever actually seriously in the running for the job.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those things where it is what it is, and so
it honestly reminds me of when I was covering the Bulls and they fired Tom Thibodeau, and John Paxson and Gar Forman sat there at the press conference after they fired him and said, "We're going to undergo a national coaching search and leave no stone unturned and have a wide variety of."
And it's somebody they've known for 20 years.
And then 48 hours later, Woj was reporting the years and money on Fred Hoiberg's contract, and it had been like the worst kept secret around the league for the past year that he was going to be their guy.
By the way, it's somebody we have had close ties to and with the franchise for 20 years. Enjoy. Thank you. But yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting question. It's one of those things. Overall, Nurk's press conference, I thought, had the spiciest tone to it. Mm-hmm. You could tell Nurk is not a guy that really hides things. He kind of wears it on his sleeve, so to speak. That tracks, I think, right?
Yeah.
When he was talking about some things, the feeling that I got with that accountability thing was there's some guys that aren't in this locker room anymore that is going to make things a little bit easier as far as establishing a pecking order that makes sense.
Hello, Mello.
I mean, I don't think anybody's going to argue that he upset the apple cart, particularly with non-Dame CJ guys, because in the pecking order, it went Dame CJ Mello, and a lot of guys behind him were sitting here wondering why is the 17-year vet who does nothing but take bad shots and good threes getting that pass. And I think that was
Carmelo Anthony.
But I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
But I think that pissed a lot of guys off in the locker room. And I think that's something that if you're looking for like a tangible changing attitudes outside of Terry Stotts gone, I think there being a pecking order that nobody's going to argue with is actually a pretty big deal. Does that track? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you slot it right now, it's Dame, CJ, Nurk, which I think more people can get behind. And then you have discussions about, is it Ant?
Norm.
Is it Norm? Is it
Zeller?
It's probably Norm considering how much money they pay.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. With Norm's
Has
deal
to
down,
be Norm.
it is Dame, CJ, Nurk, Norm. Then the competition is now for that 5th spot. Is it Covington? Is it Ant? Is it Nance? Who? And I think what they did.
Ben McLemore.
I think what they
CJ did say he has one of the prettiest jump shots of all time,
and Dame didn't want to bring him in. So
hey, did you guys? This is one of those like stupid media guy throwing something out with nothing to back it. Did you catch? There was a quick second, Sean. Dame dropped I think he was asked about the roster or something, and he kind of dropped a with Pat here, and I was wondering, like, did you just let the cat out of the bag that Patrick Patterson is going to be the guy that they're going to ultimately end up picking? Because Chauncey seemed to really like Patrick Patterson.
Well, too, because he was with the Clippers.
Right, but he seemed to like really emphasize he's a good locker room guy, he's good presence, and I'm like, they're not going to go that way, right?
Pat is well liked. I'll say that
he is well liked.
Yeah.
I also, and this is something that my buddy Eric Gunderson has been saying as a theory, and this is something you can all keep your third eye open.
Should I draw the third eye on right now?
Yeah.
Shout out Bulls versus Blazers.
Shout out to the family. Keep your third eye open about this. All of these quote unquote name guards that are being brought into training camp, whether that be Dennis Smith Jr. or Quinn Cook or there's a third one I forget, but like whether these guys that are like guys you've heard of that are backcourt players that are being brought in to compete for those spots. That's so that they can say that there was a competition for the backup point guard and Ant won it.
I totally buy into it. 100%.
100%.
100%. I'm into it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering when you were starting to talk, I'm like, is he going to say that this is really to just elevate Ant and how good Ant has gotten, which maybe he has, but I love that you went there. I love that
Neil is very bullish on Ant. He declared him this backup point guard before last season.
That trend is continuing. I've heard from folks that Chauncey and Brooks are both in the same camp.
The idea that you can say, hey, look, we brought in Dennis Smith Jr., former lottery pick, Quinn Cook, NBA champion with the Warriors, and Ant beat them both out in training camp. That's going to give it legitimacy. Mm-hmm. Just keep your third eye open.
Yeah, no, that
I'm all in. I'm here.
He's more of a towel waver. He's really not a guy you can put on the floor anymore. I mean,
who, Patterson?
Yeah. Listen.
100%.
Two-Pats, I have heard nothing but great things about him as a dude. Like, well-liked everywhere he's been. It's weirdly, I heard him compared, as stupid as this is going to sound because so many people hate him now publicly, but I've heard him compared to Kendrick Perkins. Because Perk is beloved.
Very well liked as a locker room
guy. Beloved as a locker room guy. I have heard the same thing about Patterson. So,
yeah. And then he betrayed Kevin Durant's trust on national television, and it was over.
A little bit of money will do that to you. That's kind of how it goes. All right, Dame's press conference, I think, was as weird as it was to say that it was one of Olshey's best. I thought Dame was a little off kilter at a couple times. Did you guys get that sense at all?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my point is I think Sean, when he opened up the stream and saying like his commitment to Portland, I'm 100% with him, but I'm just it's a vibe thing. And I know that's a very third eye kind of stupid
vibe check
thing to say. I just got a real relaxed, like, I'm just going to play my basketball and we'll see what happens this year. And then I will address what my future is. Like, that's kind of the energy that I got from him. He's happy to see his guys. He's happy to be out there running. It's cool to get a new voice and kind of work with Chauncey to see how that goes. But I don't know. I don't feel like there's the expectation as much as we mentioned, right? They didn't use the word championship stuff. Like, I think he's just going to kind of go into this carefree. He's going to be Damian Lillard and he's going to be beloved. And if they come up short, I'm not going to be stunned at all. If he's like, hey, I got to go win a ring here. I can't go ringless.
Honestly, I think that if there's anything to what you're saying, Brandon,
yeah,
that a lot of what this press conference was Dame saying a lot of this out loud, almost to talk himself into it as much as anything, because I think he kind of realizes that the situation is what it is.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of saying it out loud by saying, like, well, I do think we got better. I really like the Larry, like basically trying to go through like all the positives, just kind of out loud, almost to reinforce it to himself. I can kind of see where you're coming from.
Little woosah action. There was a point where when he was talking about the roster, where he was asked, is he happy with the roster? And Dame usually, dives in and he comes right, boom, 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 and lays it out. And he kind of danced around it, which I don't think I'm reading too much into it to say that more than anything, when he looked at this, like you said, Sean, I think he was trying to convince himself of it, like kind of reaffirm it out loud. But he also used some lines that looked like they were straight off of Neil Olshey's notebook. He dropped the trade, when you take a look around and you really assess the market and it takes two to get a deal done. It was like you close your eyes and you're like, does Neil have a Dame puppet? Like it was crazy because it didn't sound like Dame. It did not sound like how he talks. And I just
there's definitely some him like towing the company line a little bit.
Yeah, and it was
Dame. I think is the thing is like I think there's something to that, but Dame is also, he wouldn't say anything like that if he didn't also believe it. I think Dame has enough of a track record at this point that he's not really a bullshitter and he's not gonna say something that he totally doesn't believe. And he also,
and that's the thing though, he knows what that market has looked like. When we talked about the entire the idea of trading Damian Lillard and how he realizes, if I did go somewhere else, I'd be on an island just in a different market.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think the last column that I wrote about this whole situation during Summer League, or right after the Olympics, and I will have something coming out on this whole they probably focus more on Dame later tonight or tomorrow on BR. So just that's just a little plug for you there. But
plug away, my friend.
Hold on, I just forgot what I was about to say.
Yes, he derailed.
He knows. I think Dame is smart enough to know, what the situation is.
Yeah,
he knows that the situation isn't going to change. He also knows that, and I think the difference. I mean, we just kind of have to take him at his word at this point that he wants to be in Portland, and that if he really wanted to be traded, he would, come out and say that, or he would do that. And I think the difference between him and somebody like James Harden or Ben Simmons is that Dame doesn't really have the stomach to be the bad guy. He doesn't have people not like him. And so I don't know if he even, let's say, at the end of this season, they lose in the first round again and the same noise starts up again. I'm not entirely convinced that he would go through with asking for a trade then, because I still think there's a part of him that has seen the backlash that other guys have faced for forcing their way out of certain situations. And he's basically built his entire brand on being the loyal guy and being the guy that stayed and being the guy that isn't joining a super team. And whenever he's asked about it, he says, I'm not going to ever say anything that I can't stand on, or I'm going to stand on whatever I decide. Like all this whole thing, I think the term that he used for it was like, I'm going to die on my shield.
Yeah, he brought that up a couple different times.
Repeatedly, yeah.
That was a new one, and I think Dame is.
We're gonna get some Shield Dame 8s here soon, I'm sure.
Dame is also, he's been doing this long enough. He knows how heavily scrutinized all of his stuff is. He didn't have to go this hard if he was really in the back of his mind thinking about maybe at some point I'm going to ask for a trade. He didn't have to do the Instagram post a week ago saying Rip City is my city. He didn't have to put the interlude on his album where he was talking about how much he respected Kobe's loyalty to one franchise. I'm not saying that all rap music is autobiographical to the artist, but Dame knew that this album was coming out at the exact time that this noise was starting about him. He did not have to put that on his album if it wasn't the way he felt. He's smart enough, and the people around him, as far as like his agents and his reps and all of them, are smart enough to know that everything he does is going to get scrutinized. And so a lot of this stuff, I think, we are at this point, we just kind of have to take him at his word that he's all in.
I just want to thank everybody for coming in. We've had anywhere between 150 and 180 kind of coming and going on the live feed. So thank you all so very much. We've got Sean Hyken here from Bleacher Report, obviously Danny Morang, Brandon Sprague, and reviewing Media Day. We've kind of covered pretty much everybody as far as the big major players. I think it's time to dive into CJ McCollum, but you haven't already. Please like, rate, and review the show, the live stream here. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, Jacked Ramsays Blue Wire Podcast Network. If you can, leave us a review. That would be fan-freaking-tastic. That's the kind of what helps elevate on iTunes. So, but thank you all for being here. CJ McCollum went up there and spent 5 minutes talking about absolutely nothing. One of the more impressive things I've ever seen. The one thing I took away from it was, hey, by the way, CJ is married, owns a vineyard, has a kid on the way, and now he's president of the NBPA. He's doing pretty damn well for himself. If there's one thing that I can take away from CJ is that he has had the confidence of somebody at this level basically since he came into the league. Like, he always knew he was going to be the big guy in the room.
He had big aspirations. It wasn't just being a dominant good player. It was,
he wanted
how do I
everywhere.
create this?
Yes.
Yeah. This is what I was saying earlier. CJ wants to work in media when he's done playing. I remember when he was still coming in the draft. Bill Simmons and Jalen Rose had their Grantland incoming rookie job interviews, and I remember for 2 years after that, Bill Simmons was always talking about, man, I would hire CJ to work for Grantland right now. He's so polished. That's just kind of always been how CJ is. It's kind of a natural fit for a guy to be the president of the Players Union. It feels like CJ, not just for the auditioning for media stuff, it feels like CJ has been auditioning to be the president of the Players Union basically since he came in the league. And
Commissioner McCollum in 25 years.
I mean, would you 100% rule it out? Maybe
No,
not.
I wouldn't.
Not at all.
I think the idea that we could have an ex-player as commissioner, I think that could be something that we see, and I can't think of very many better candidates in the modern era as far as guys who would want the job and are already practiced in being a politician. I think the most noteworthy thing out of CJ's press conference was I did ask him because he is the president of the Players Union, and
the vaccination stuff.
The vaccination stuff is the story around the league right now. And so I asked him, as president of the Players Union, what is your thought on guys like Bradley Beal or Jonathan? I didn't mention those guys specifically by name, but Bradley Beal, Jonathan Isaac, Kyrie Irving, Andrew Wiggins, all these guys that have come out against getting the vaccine. And CJ, his wife she's not a doctor, she's a dentist, but she works in the medical field. So and
she's pregnant, so he's
that too. But CJ has also talked about in the past about how he is pro-vaccine, and so I asked him kind of just about how he, as the president of the Players Union, how he views all of this whole situation, and he gave kind of the answer that I would expect as far as politically correct. We have to respect all viewpoints, but we also want to keep people safe and educate people about why they should get the vaccine. That was kind of the exact answer you would expect somebody to say when they're in his position.
Yeah,
and he's not going to go full scorched earth on anybody who doesn't want to get the vaccine is an idiot, especially because
he can't.
Kyrie Irving is on the board of the Players.
Yeah, he's the vice president.
They're going to have to.
On that
they're
board,
going to have to talk, work together to negotiate stuff. So he's, it was basically the exact answer you would expect from somebody who's a diplomat like CJ is.
Can I ask you guys, I didn't really get much from what he was talking about. In general, he was, to what you said, Danny, kind of doing a word salad thing.
Yeah.
I kept thinking though, while he was talking, I kept thinking about Chauncey talking and Dame talking and, Nurk, and what is this season going to mean? I came to a conclusion. Of all the players, is he not going to be the toughest to get to fall into whatever this new era is going to be? Can we really see CJ drastically changing the way he's going to approach the game? I can't see that. Nurk can be malcontent, but I could see him familiar with the role, rebound, play defense, get the putback. Dame is going to be Dame. I think of the guys like CJ. I really don't know how he's going to work in this accountability, this defense. I don't buy that he's going to suddenly change his game that way.
That's the thing, as I've kind of alluded on a couple times here, is this whole idea of you can't have both. You can't have the best version of CJ McCollum, which the 13 games to start last season, and Yusuf Nurkic more involved. Because now you're elevating CJ McCollum to a level or on the level of Damian Lillard. And so you're going to tell Dame to take a step back. But to get the best CJ McCollum, you want him to be the version that he was the first 13 games of the year last year, which is when Yusuf Nurkic was minimized. So you've got that conflict, and that's what I keep going back to, like the idea of where do you find that, and where is that balancing point, and how toxic's not the word I want to use, but how volatile I think that situation
it can be fragile.
Can be.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Fragile is the perfect word for it, because I believe these guys genuinely like each other and they love each other. But there have been some cracks in that, particularly over the last couple months of last season. Now, that could have just been COVID, the stresses of the season, everything else, but there were some things that popped up that made me kind of go, oh, I don't know about all that. So I think if you're looking at, something to watch, everybody's going to stare at the big volcano, which is Yusuf Nurkic. But I think you probably should keep your eyes on the one to the side in CJ McCollum, and not that he's going to be the one that causes or explodes, but I think he could be the one that feeds Yusuf Nurkic's explosion. And that's a really terrible volcano metaphor that I just came up with. You like that? No? Okay.
I thought it was pretty awful, to be honest with you.
That's what kind of what I was going for. It's my ability to process thermodynamics is off the charts. What can I say? God. But in general, CJ was CJ. Didn't really have anything in there. Everybody else after that, we had Zeller, Nance. Let's spend a little bit of time on Larry, and then we'll kind of wrap up on everybody else.
Boy, Zeller's crowd, boring Oregon's excited for Cody Zeller. I'll tell you right now.
There's two people on this team that every 40-year-old white dad is going to love, and it is Larry Nance Jr. and it is Cody Zeller. They put their hard hats on before they go to work. They love their families. They're willing to sacrifice for the team, the greater good. I mean, listen, Larry said the exact same things as Cody. Larry just said them with more flavor. That's what I got from that. What was your takeaway, Sean?
Yeah, Larry was very I think he almost did the deep dive, internet research into how many different things can I say that are going to make me
pop the Q rating up.
Exactly. What can I let me just check off the list, I love how progressive Portland is, LGBTQ rights. I love soccer. I'm surprised he didn't have strong opinions about microbrews or about donuts.
I was going to say big IPA guy right here. Yeah, big IPA guy.
And be like, listen, you got to go to a different restaurant. Screen Door is great, guys, but there's other restaurants out there.
Right. I just actually, Voodoo Donuts is kind of a tourist trap. It's not really
just throw out his favorite Thai place right in the middle of it. Oh yeah, by the way,
You know what? Powell's Books is great, but there are smaller independent bookstores that you actually should be supporting instead.
I love the idea of Larry Nance Jr. workshopping.
He absolutely. I mean, that's the vibe that I got from it totally. But no, he seemed great. I actually really kind of enjoyed Cody Zeller going through his, what his game is. He seemed pretty self-aware about I'm not really a rim protector, but I'm going to keep guys from getting in the paint. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to get 5 blocks a night, but I'm going to do a great job keeping guards out.
My first impressions of Cody Zeller, I think, were positive. Also.
The thing that I got from him was he kind of hey, listen, I've been in Charlotte for 8 years. You guys don't know who I am. You don't have to convince me you know who I am. So let me introduce you to who I am. That's the vibe that I got from him, which I thought was good.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a conventionally good player, is going to do some things. I don't think he's going to fill up the box score in any kind of way. I think I'm going to liken him to Robin Lopez, where he's going to be kind of a cult hero, where he's going to do a lot of things, and you're going to God, they're better with him on the floor for long stretches. What the hell? You look at the box score, he's got 2 points and 3 rebounds, but you're why do they look so much better? Just because he just understands basketball. He just gets it.
Speaking of Robin Lopez, have you guys seen any Robin Lopez content from today?
I have not.
All I saw was his jersey being retired back home in Fresno.
So I have 2 things to read you.
Oh, go for it.
Yes.
One of them is a tweet that Robin sent out earlier today, where he says, and I'm reading and I quote, "I've decided to haze the Magic rookies by making them get me the newest issues of National Geographic, Popular Science, and The New Yorker when they come out, and we're going to do a little magazine club and talk about what we've read. It will be delightful, and you can't join." And then also, this is from the Twitter account that I'm seeing this from is Orlando Pinstriped Post, which is the SB Nation Magic site. when asked about his brother winning a title, Robin Lopez says he's not sure if Milwaukee actually won a championship because he was actually there. He wasn't there and didn't watch it. Says he's still doing his own research.
Yeah.
I hope he sends that to Wiggins.
Shout out to Robin. I mean, forget Wiggins. There's at least one guy in his own locker room in Orlando.
Well, I mean, yeah, touche. Yeah, okay, you're right.
But no, Robin's one of my favorites. I had him in Chicago as well as Portland. He's one of my favorite dudes I've ever covered. Robin's just awesome. So I just thought I'd share some Robin content here.
I saw Robin. I think he still owns his place.
He does.
Down in
he
the
still
South
lives
waterfront.
out at the waterfront.
Oh yeah, no, he's here in the summer usually.
Yeah.
So
he still lives out here.
I work right down the road. There's a brewery right across, like a pub, and I was getting beers 2 summers ago. And he pulls out of like a Uber or something, and I'm like, Rolo, you still live here? And he goes, the king doesn't leave his castle. And then he just walked into his apartment.
That's exactly on brand for what Robin would just casually say. I
not missing a beat, not trying to. I guess when you're Robin Lopez and you're 7 foot tall and you have that hair. Like even when you put it under the hat, like
he was wearing his
Mariner's hat. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But even then, he's 7 foot tall. Like you're not hiding. Like
my favorite Robin Lopez fact, and this is going to be wild to you guys because you guys know about like the shoe game when it comes to players in the NBA and how many free pairs of shoes these guys get and how many they go through. The year that I had Robin in Chicago, he played all 82 games wearing the same pair of Adidas shoes. He did not change a pair of shoes once during the season.
Why?
I don't know, but I just remember talking to him about it that year. And he's just like, he just said, well, I forget how it came up in conversation. Cause like Robin was the guy, cause like I used to always just like hang out in the locker room pregame during the window of time when we could. And he was like the only guy in there. And so me and him would talk and we would usually just like talk about the Simpsons cause we're both huge Simpsons fans. But like, at one point.
How many conversations did you have about Rush?
I don't know if Robin's a Rush guy. I think whenever I've seen him tweet about music, I understand why you would go there. I understand why you would think that. Every time I've heard him talk about music, I think he's more of I've seen him tweet about like ordering like the Mariah Carey box set on vinyl, which I sent to my buddy Chris Hine, who covers the Timberwolves, and also like a huge Mariah Carey fan. I think he's more of like a Mariah Carey, like Michael Jackson, like classic pop and R&B guy. I don't know if he's again. I get why you would think he's a Rush guy like I am because of some of Robin's other interests, but it seems like that's maybe not the kind of music that he's into. But the thing that he and I used to always talk about was The Simpsons, which is like the thing we both had in common. But I don't remember how it came up, but he told me at one point that he used that and he wore the same pair of shoes for all 82 games of the season. And then I didn't end up doing anything with it, but just out of curiosity, I started going around to other guys on the team and asking like how many pairs of shoes they go through during a season. And most guys said they changed their shoes out like 4 or 5 times during the year. And then Dwayne Wade was like, well, I have all these different custom player editions from Li Ning. Sometimes I change shoes at the half. I probably go through 100 pairs a year.
Yep. Some players will switch twice in a game. It's like,
Louise. Dame has some colorways, so he goes through some shoes.
If you, I mean, you guys will know this. Like, you go in the locker room when you could back in the day, and I would go in the Blazer locker room, and it would just
stack.
You see stacks, but you'd see their game-worn shoes on the ground, and you would go, "Oh, those shoes are destroyed. Like they can't wear those shoes anymore."
Yeah,
it's insane.
A little inside baseball. I remember seeing Wesley Matthews' feet one night. And those are the most disgusting feet on the face of the planet. Wes's feet were so mangled. He said something about it to me, too, and I was like, what is wrong with your feet?
Are they as bad as...
By the way, is Wes on a team this year?
He's not been signed yet.
I haven't seen him be signed yet.
But his toes were just like, I mean, the wrong ways, just...
Yeah.
Like, he said something like, they get stepped on every night. Like, he had toenails torn off regularly, and I'm just like, oh, my God. He said Shaq was the worst offender. Shaq would stomp his foot down. You guys have seen LeBron's feet, right? LeBron's feet are also kind of...
They're pretty jacked.
Yeah.
No, I try to avoid it as much as possible because after I saw Wes's feet, I was horrified.
I used to hate going to the games, and I'd go to like, I don't know, a random game, and Tim Hardaway would be an assistant coach, and I would just look at his legs, and I'd be like, oh my God, his legs. That's what all those years in the NBA does to your legs. Patrick Ewing's the same way. Patrick Ewing like shrank. He can't, like their legs get all messed up too.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when a super athletic human being pounds wood floors thousands of times over, decades. The Robin Lopez tweet just came up on my feed. So, yes, I will. Let me go ahead and like and retweet for anybody else who's out there looking for it. That's fantastic. Let's kind of wrap it up here because we've been going for about an hour and a half, and thank all of you who've been here. Media Day means Blazers basketball is here. The official season opener is upon us. Training camp starts tomorrow. Ant got up there. Rocco, Nas. Am I forgetting anybody else? We already kind of hit on Zeller. So those three guys. And we just had Ant on the show just a few days ago. Anything from you guys on those guys?
I got to be honest. After Dame went, I heard. I'm forgetting the order here. I heard a little bit of Zellers, I heard Nurk, and I heard Dame. And I think after that, I ended up logging off. I had to go run some errands.
Hiking?
Yeah, I was mainly interested in Dame and CJ.
Well, for anybody who didn't catch Anthony's interview, it's on the feed. If you're on the YouTube channel right now, It's just down below. Ant came by for about 45 minutes to talk to us about what he's excited about. But overall, I'm kind of surprised that this press conference, this media day went as well as it did. General, again, tie a bow on it type stuff. Was there anything that caught you guys off guard that you're thinking about now? Nothing?
I'm not surprised. I guess I'm more surprised that you were surprised. As bad as that was, proprietary Sean.
They were so bad for twice in a row. I'm like,
I know, but Danny, you know this, man.
I mean, it still wasn't great that they still basically no commented the.
No,
100% agree with that. I'm just saying, overall, I didn't expect this to go into the side of the mountain the way the Chauncey press conference did. I really expected most of the vanilla non-answer answers from just about everybody. If anything, it actually just reaffirmed how excited I am about the season. I think this team's interesting. They range in so many people's opinions of how good they can be and where they'll really end up that I look at the Western Conference and I hear every argument and they all make sense to me. And I'm jacked to see what Chauncey is as a coach, how different they look, who's doing what, how different roles are. All of that today kind of got lit inside me. Because right now I've just been doing football along with the podcast. So to finally actually hear and see the guys in town and hear what they said, it just got me excited for the NBA season.
So the first preseason game is the 4th. Was that a week from today?
Yeah. So the two home preseason games are a week from today and 2 weeks from today, the 4th and the 11th.
So we'll have a pretty quick turnaround on the first experiment. Maybe we'll buy in as much as we all did on Mario Hezonja, bench point guard.
I wish Mario Hezonja was good because he was one of the most delightful guys in the league to talk to.
He's fun. Just go.
He's a huge shit talker, and he genuinely thinks he's one of the best players in the league, but he's actually one of the worst players.
It's just you love the confidence, man. He's great in that regard. It's just it doesn't ever come together. Sean, what are you working on Bleach Report?
We'll probably have something on Dame either tonight or tomorrow, and then other than that, I've got a couple, features, ideas in the works that are sort of developing that are a little bit too early to talk about. But I got some stuff in the works. You guys will be hearing from me.
Perfect. Follow Hikin at Hikin on Twitter. Bleacher Report on the app. Sprague, what do you got coming up on 1080?
Just, more football stuff. Just the perfect stuff to tease on an NBA podcast.
Perfect. That's what we love to hear.
My Ducks still undefeated.
Yeah, well, I hope they...
My Bees just kicking Danny's ass in L.A. It was a great weekend. It's
been a rough week for him. You know what? I did say I wrote the season off, and it is what it is with Helton being fired, so I'll take it. We will be back here for the live show on Wednesday. Probably be a compressed one. We'll probably have some insights from training camp and a few other things here or there. Like I said, I'm still working to get a few other guys before the season starts. Hopefully we can get Larry on. Can't confirm which way that one's going to go yet. But we will be on live show Wednesdays going forward until the season starts. And then Brandon and I will have hopefully something in the next couple of weeks. Well, we will because the season's getting ready to start as far as how quickly we're going to be doing stuff. I've got some more surprises in the works as far as what we'll get from content for Jack Ramsays of the podcast side. Some cross promotion with some other folks we have coming. Some sponsorship deals that we're working on. There's a lot of stuff going on. And thank you all so very much for your time, your dedication, your support. It has been absolutely awesome. We shattered last month's downloads already. We're crushing it. I actually got a note from the Blue Wire folks earlier before we hopped on, and absolutely blown away by how great things have gone, and that is all because of you guys. So thank you all so very much. On social media, at Danny Meringue, at D Meringue on Instagram, at Hikin across everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you lucky bastard.
Hey,
And-
he just followed me on Instagram. I was like, wow, Sean Hikin followed me.
Wow,
on Instagram.
Verified Sean Hikin.
Verified Sean Hikin.
You gotta love it. At Brandon Sprague, for everybody else here, thank you all so very much. And until Wednesday, we'll see.